Hi, Jason.
Hello, Joshua.
Look at what I have in my hand.
That's how you normally start our Zooms.
Yeah, but this time it's a bottle of
Paging
whiskey.
HR.
hmm Uh,
It's a good looking
I
bottle.
it is a nice little bottle, and I'm opening it right now as we speak. You had your bottle open. Can you share with the listeners what it is we're showing and what we are going to talk about today? Watchers,
This is, as,
listeners.
as well, you just showed them, this is our new Woodcut Series, bottle number two. So last August, actually, I meant to pull down last August. Do you have it within easy reach?
Last August, yes, I do.
Last August, you gave me your 30-year-old Bowmore. Speak.
Yep. So this was our 30-year-old Bowmore, distilled in 1989, bottled in 2019. And this was one of, it's interesting, the label says one of 200 bottles, but if you recall,
Yeah, I
there were
didn't
actually
come.
far fewer than that. I think we ended up getting closer to 144 or something like that.
Yeah, it was very similar to what we've ended up with the Imperial, distilled January 1990, bottled January 2020, and now the follow up to that rather wonderful dragon label,
Yep.
just like a lot of our in house labels, created by the wonderful Moana McAuliffe. Thanks to her for her wonderful work. And there's the old Imperial distillery right there on the label.
Yep.
No longer standing.
Nope. Sadly demolished, now replaced with the Dalmunach distillery. Which is absolutely gorgeous, but apparently is producing a slightly different style of whiskey than they did at Imperial. So, we're not in a situation where that Port Ellen was, right? Where you had a distillery that was shut down. Port Ellen actually lost their stills, the
Spirit
the,
safe.
the spirit safe, all of the copper went missing. However, they had all of the schematics and everything, and were able to, the rebuilding Port Ellen. But in the case of Imperial, the distillery was shut down for a good while. Then it reopened for a bit, and then they shut it once again, along with the Glen Keith distillery. So both were owned by Pernod Ricard. And while Pernod Ricard reopened Glen Keith, I want to say in 2010, maybe 2012 ish, they demolished the Imperial distillery, and on that same site is now the Dalmunach distillery. So what is so special about not just this Imperial, but Imperial in general, is whatever is made. However many casks remain, that's it until they've all been dumped. This will never ever be made again, and that's quite special. And for the Woodcut series, the idea is to put put things we feel are the utmost special casks that we can find, the cream of the crop, the creme de la creme. In the case of the Bowmore, right, this was a style of Bowmore that went from 1981ish to 1989ish. And this style no longer exists. It's a very floral style of whiskey. And with Imperial, it just simply doesn't exist anymore, period. So you have two very incredibly special casks in for the Woodcut series. You're
Yeah,
nosing it and go ahead.
I was just going to say, just as you're talking about the distillery and being shut and being demolished, in drawing attention to why we have a transformer on the label. Our Bowmore from last year was clearly a nod to a very well known, very well regarded older bottling of Bowmore. And then the little lavender flowers as that little nod to the presence that you find, floral presence in some
But
1980s.
if you remember correctly, with the Bowmore label, it wasn't just a nod to the classic OB Bowmore, the Sea Dragon bottling, but there was a very famous Samaroli bottling called the Bouquet, and that's where the idea of the dragon breathing flowers rather than fire came from. So it was a
Which,
nod to perhaps the two most famous Bowmore bottlings ever.
yeah, and it worked out fantastically well on the label. Here we've got uh, the Transformer coming
Mm-hmm.
from what was the Puggy.
Yes.
And the Puggy was a train that ran between Imperial, Dalyuen, and
There's one more. I want to say it's Strat something, but I could be totally wrong. I
okay,
forget the
okay,
name.
yeah.
But
I always
you're right. It went through the three different distilleries.
well, and once you get your bottles, if you pay close attention, the arms of the transformer actually say Dalyuen, which
Yeah.
is also what was on the Puggy when the
Yep.
Puggy ran between the distilleries. The Puggy didn't have Imperial on it, so it's little eye for detail going on in there.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
you grew up a Transformers fan, which
Yeah.
kind of led to you coupling the Puggy with a Transformer and thinking, what would that look like in a woodcut style?
Yeah. And I remember presenting this idea to you, and both you and I have different. Our brains work in a different way on certain things. And I said, here's my idea, and I gave you, a transformer train that's working at a distiller, and you said that none of that sounds very good to me, but give it to Mo and see if Mo can translate what you're trying to describe to me into an actual piece of artwork. And then when she came back with this, it was just okay. Yep, you've nailed it. That's exactly what I saw in my head.
Well, and even going through the first iteration of the label, where it was just a black and white line drawing, the
Yeah.
level of detail on the Transformer was really astounding and
Mm-hmm.
really speaks to Mo's creativity and ability. And
Oh,
and actually even since getting the colored version of the label, getting the actual label, showing this to my two boys, which you shouldn't really say given the TTB in the current climate, but both of my kids, 10 and 13, think this label is amazing. Absolutely amazing. And they really like the dragon one. Who doesn't like a good dragon? But for Transformers, they thought this one is a home run.
I'm telling you, show them some cigarette ads. They might like those too.
I tell you, they're big fans of Joe Camel. Huge fans. Huge. They like all of his
So,
work.
so you know me. I am an absolute Imperial fanatic. It's
You
not
are.
my favorite distillery in the world. I'd probably say it's my second after Springbank. But when it comes to collecting whiskeys, I've been collecting Imperial for a while. Usually 2 bottles of each release, so I can enjoy one and sock the other one away. And this, to me, is doing everything I want an older Imperial to do. It's got that classic minerality, that flintiness that comes through on Imperial, but it's incredibly fruity as well. There's this like starfruit and banana chips on the nose.
Yeah, the thing for me that it lives up to our advanced billing is even at 30 years old, you're still looking at a wonderful collection of oil in
Oh,
the
yeah.
glass. And I remember pointing it out with our Stones of Sten Ness 19-year-old that we just released. But there you go. Look at that oil
Yeah.
on that glass. That's
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
30-year-old whiskey to be doing that is really quite impressive. Do you remember the cask life story? Because we don't put it.
Yeah.
He says, checking
Uh,
the label quickly. Do we put it on the label? Yeah, we just say
well,
bourbon barrel
it just
on
says
the label.
bourbon barrel, but this is from a refill bourbon barrel, so likely second or third use. The broker that we got it from actually purchased a good little pile of Imperial casks and has been kind to, let a few slip through the cracks to us. This is the second Imperial that we've done, and we have another one on the way for UK Europe that we're really excited about.
UK, Europe, rest of the world.
Yep, UK Europe, rest of the world. So this is refill bourbon. So you're dealing with oils from the spirit itself. There's probably some wood oil in there as well, but this is the beauty of refill casks when it comes to older whiskeys. Is the whiskeys can mature in a very elegant way, and while we, Jason, you and I, we typically bottle whiskeys that are grabbing you by the taste buds and saying, pay attention to me, pay attention to me. I would say this one's a bit more contemplative. You've got to approach it rather than it, grabbing you by the lapels saying, you need to pay attention to me. There's a lot to pull apart, but you got to want it.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't reach for 30-year-old single malt of a day. It's older, softer, elegant, sophisticated, right? At the end of the day, if I've been selecting casks or working on the company, what have you, I want something bold and in my face, which sounds like another story. But for this, it's just, how to put it? It's definitely one that you sit with. It's one that you let flavors build. It's old style single malt Scotch, which is a funny thing to say for us. Here we're now into 1990, and that's producing a 30-year-old. I remember
Right.
It used to be, this is 1964. You'd be like, oh, old whiskey. Now it's 1990, jeepers creepers. I was 16 living a full life in 1990 when this was laid down, and yet it's old style whiskey. So yeah, good flavors on it. On the nose, I'm getting a little bit of brown licorice, all sorts to it, which was lovely. Somebody actually wrote out, sent in an email, and it said, yeah, brown licorice, all sorts. I had to go buy a bag, but once I did, yeah, I totally get what you're getting at in another place where I talked about it.
Yeah, it's the aniseed, it's the coconut. It's it's a lot of different flavors.
So there's no coconut in the brown ones. It's the pink
there's no
ones.
coconut in the brown ones.
No, it's the pink ones that are the coconut round with the licorice through the middle of it.
Yeah,
those are the coconut presents.
Oh,
yeah.
You're talking about the little squares with the brown
correct.
and the black and the brown. Yeah,
correct. Yeah, no coconut in those, but you've got that kind of sweet sugar element going on. And of course, they're sitting in a bag with the coconut ones, right? We talked about, which release did we talk about with? Was it the Altmore 30? God, another old one, where we talked about spent matchstick in a neighboring room, that kind of distant element here. And I know you put it in the tasting notes. I was looking over them. You put coconut on the tasting notes, but it's a hint of coconut. It's a distant coconut. It's coconut in the next room, or it's a brown licorice all sort that shared a bag with a coconut licorice all sort, right? It's that type of coconut.
Yeah. There's
I'm also glad you
this...
say flinty.
Flinty,
there is that nice kind of dry flint note, almost. Would you say like a blue slate?
I would, and I'm glad you pointed that out. So, one of the things that I absolutely love about Imperial, and have always loved about Imperial, is that much like Springbank, the spirit is unmistakable. And you, I probably mentioned this on the podcast before, and I know you and I just in general have talked about how terrible I am at blind tasting anything. But when it comes,
as am I. I'm not going to throw you under the bus.
You, as are most humans, right?
It's a horrible experience.
But when it comes to Springbank spirit, whether it's Hazelburn, Springbank, or Longrow, I can tell you that it's from that distillery, and I would say the same rings true for Imperial. I find its spirit to be unmistakable, which which is really good. I mean, from the perspective of Pernod Ricard, who used to own the distillery and used it just for blends, you want a distillate that is consistent, that is always presents a certain flavor profile to help you with your blends. And this is one of the reasons why I didn't really understand why they let that distillery go, but I can play my tiny violin another time about that.
There's such a building fruitiness to the back of the palate. Normally, that's the point at which I would expect a transition to pull in some pepper notes. And instead, this is fruit. And there's almost like golden raisins going on. But then there's also even a syrup component going on. Almost, we talk about it a lot, the tinned fruit cocktail syrup, but not as big, as bold, as brash, as sugary as that, but that softer version, that memory of fruit cocktail syrup.
100%. That's a really good note. I like that.
And I know another one.
Some pepper on the finish.
And there is pepper. There's pepper, but it's not quite what I would expect, which again speaks to that refill oak, where you're not going to get as much peppery influence from the wood. The spirit is going to speak more for itself. There's going to be a very, very small input from the ex-bourbon that was in there, very small. But and again, this happens with old whiskey. As you just let it sit, then you take another sip and you coat again. Then you take another sip, you coat again. It just slowly builds. The whole experience just builds.
And that's what I meant before, where I said that this is the instance where you have to come to the whiskey. Don't let the whiskey come to you. With a lot of the whiskeys that we bottle, I mean, granted, flavors do build and things like that, but we tend to bottle very large in your face whiskeys, where this one, you have to focus on that flavor building. And then it becomes this rabbit hole of never ending flavor. There's just layer after layer after layer.
Just on that subject of kind of the more in your face, when we'd done the tasting video for the Isla blended malt, I'd said, this is one you open on a Friday, you recycle the bottle on a Monday. Multiple people have emailed me to say, I just did that over this weekend. And so it is a remarkable one. And, those bottles are going out, the Stones of Stoness, they're going out. We're slow and steady. We will win the race. But for those on the West Coast who have started receiving their bottles, it's been great to know that lived up to advanced billing. And so here we are. We don't tell lies. We're transparent here. This is the other end of the spectrum. This is doing what older whiskey does. And my line repeated many times, the only thing you can guarantee with older whiskey is that you'll pay more money. And yes, we've checked off one box on this. This is $395 in the age of 25% tariffs. This is $395, just like the Bowmore from last year. But it's good 30-year-old whiskey from a demolished distillery. And, people watching this, are valued members. They know they can trust us with their money. They know we're not going to pull a swift one. It is a worry that we have. When you start to move into a series, our members are completionists, just like we are, right? You get the first of a series, you hear it's going to be 4 total. You get the second of a series, there's 2 more to go. It starts to take on a life of its own. There is no and will be no cutting of corners when it comes to selecting bottles for the Woodcut series. We expect our members, and you said it earlier, to purchase 2 bottles, open 1, store 1 away, save it for 5 years, 10 years, save it for a birthday or an anniversary 20 years from now, 25 years from now, when Imperial's a distant memory. But we know when they open that bottle, they're going to enjoy what is inside it. That's critical.
I think enjoy is too soft, too understated a word. I really, I'm being very honest. I think that this is remarkable. There's, in my experience, there's only been one Imperial bottling that I think is better than this one. And that was a 17-year-old bottled by the Malt Trust, maybe in 2006 or 2005. And that was just a remarkable whiskey. That's what got me started on my Imperial journey. And I've found and purchased many amazing Imperial bottlings since, but it wasn't until we found this cask where I said, oh, wait a second, this is going above and beyond what I normally experience from Imperial.
Yeah, I'm actually going to make a comparison to an active bottler right now. Sukhinder Singh with the Whiskey Exchange, they do the director's bottlings, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's the director's series or the director's something or other, but those are bottlings expressly made by Sukhinder Singh. And yeah, they're more expensive. You certainly pay a premium for them. Those, given how much Sukhinder tastes and selects, those are out of this world. And in our own way, we'd like to be known for the Woodcut series, where we put the very best of the best that we're tasting into that series, and didn't just have a money grab, didn't just have a pretty label, but had real top quality spirit in it. And people who bought the first Woodcut series last year, the Bowmore, were quick to reach out and say, this is excellent. This is really wonderful 80s Bowmore. And we set, what's it called? The bar. We set the bar really high out the gate. The Imperials, an attempt to follow that. So I'm glad you think Enjoy is too soft on that. It is a damn good cask of Imperial, and one we're very proud to have put in a bottle. And hopefully our members will sell it out the way they sold out the Bowmore last year.
We shall see. Either way, I'm very excited to launch this on Wednesday, August 5th. Now, Jason, as you had said, these will be limited to 2 per person. Granted, we understand the price tag alone of $3.95 may be self-limiting, and people may just go with the one bottle, and that's just fine. But given there's so few of them, we are going to limit it to 2 per person, as we have been with our other bottlings. And we're hoping that these will start shipping the very next week. So that would be, I don't know, whatever week that is. The week after the week that August 5th is. You're good at math, Jason, right? What is that?
I just enjoy it when you talk yourself into a cul-de-sac. I have no need to help you out of it. I'm just enjoying the train wreck.
Anyway, people, we really hope you enjoy the second in our Woodcut series. We are and have been looking for the third in our Woodcut series, which will be released in 2021, and then 2022 we'll have the 4th and final Woodcut label, Woodcut bottling. But we hope you enjoy this one. We thank you for your continual support of everything that we do, and that you allow us to indulge a bit in some of these fun, different bottlings.
Yeah. Cheers, member. Member. That's what happens, right? I make fun of you walking and talking yourself into a cul-de-sac, and I do it right behind you. So cheers, members. Here comes the Imperial. Enjoy it when it lands.
Cheers.